Hello, everyone. Welcome to Car Crash Productions Instagram Live today. We are in our fifth and final week of the virtual Pending Festival. And today we have a very, very special guest. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him before he comes on with us today for a wonderful interactive session. Hey everyone! So our guest today is an iconic film director originally from Malaysia, but now he calls the UK his home. He's a graduate from Goldsmiths University with an MA and distinction in television drama, and in 2000 he was a recipient of the British High Commissioner's Chevening Scholarship. So he's a real powerhouse. And he has since made his name as the go-to director of cinematic rom-coms with a difference that takes audiences to faraway lands like Turkey, Greece, and Iran, to name a few. So he combines his love for filmmaking and travel, and he has also had a lot of critically acclaimed as well as commercially successful films, especially in Malaysia and in Asia. Some Malaysian audiences would be very familiar with his films, such as Istanbul Aku Datang, Pisau Cukur, Golden Ginchu. So, without further ado, he is joining us today to share about his experiences working with actors and how to bring out the best performances in them. So everyone, please welcome Bernard Chauly. So I'm going to let him in right now. Here we go. Okay, let's see if he's... Hello!
Hello. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Bernard. How are you today?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
very good. I'm going to be holding the phone and speaking to you for an hour. I refuse to use a tripod or anything like that. Thank you, Stephanie, for organizing this. Thank you, Car Crash Productions, for inviting me to be live for an hour. And let's hope it will be productive and inspiring for everybody.
Wonderful, wonderful. What a lovely moment to have you with us today. And I just wanted to let all our viewers know that they can ask questions for you live. There's like a little button at the bottom with a question mark so they can ask us questions during the course of this as well. So to
Mm-hmm.
get started,
Mm-hmm.
some of them would have listened to a little bit of an intro that I gave.
Mm-hmm.
But could you share a little bit more about yourself and what drives you as a filmmaker?
Okay, so as you mentioned, I'm Malaysian of Punjabi and Chinese parentage. Grew up in Malaysia, brought up very Catholic in a multicultural society where Islam is the majority religion. And the youngest of three children brought up by a very strong female mother, a very strong mother, a single parent, and someone you would say is probably a tiger mom, and Gen X, and a lot of people from that generation uh, in those circumstances would be expected to be professional, do something very professional, doctor, lawyer, engineer, etc. So after I decided not to be a doctor, I promised my mother that I would be an architect. Um, but I eventually went to a public university in Malaysia where I did my first degree in communication, majoring in film, minoring in anthropology and sociology, and also doing a lot of classes in theater and learning French. Basically, as a 20-year-old, like most 20-year-olds, I did not know what I wanted to do. So it was a wonderful 4 years to really decide or explore what I could do, and it was only at the end of my 4 year degree, although I graduated top of my class with a first class honors degree, I graduated still not thinking that I could write a script or be a film director. So I became a coolie in TV commercials and directed documentaries, and eventually, like I said, as you said, I received the British High Commissioner's Chevening Scholarship to do my masters in London at Goldsmiths, um, and specifically writing and directing for screen. And it was actually really at a wise old age of 27 that I thought, okay, maybe I can do this directing thing. And the last 20 years has been an ongoing process to attempt and to continually attempt. Uh, and yes, inspiring, telling stories and working with actors and working with people are what drives me.
Yeah, it's quite amazing because you've sent me a few links to watch two of your films,
Hmm.
and I've also been directed by you, so some trivia there on a lovely television miniseries which was Anak Merdeka to do with our Independence Day 2017. So I have some
Yes.
experience of working with you, and so it was very exciting to watch these two telemovies preparing to come on today, one of which is Container Anna, starring Lisa Suriani. And we've also had the Europa, Here I Am with Brant Palare and two other very, very international as well as amazing actors.
Hmm.
So I noticed there was this very distinctive style that you have when you work with your actors. And when I remember when we rehearsed the day before we shot Anak Merdeka, I actually felt that you did a lot of very theatrical warm-ups with us as actors, and you gave us a lot of room to play. So could you tell us a bit more about this? Yeah.
Yes, so I think it goes back to my first degree at University of Science Malaysia in Penang, where although I was doing a degree in communication and doing a lot of film theory, a mentor or someone who became a mentor was actually a theatre lecturer, Janet Pillay, and through her, I eventually embarked on I became involved in theatre productions not as a director but as a lighting designer and as an observer. But what's wonderful is Janet Pillay was a specialist in not children's theatre, but conflict resolution through performance and theatrical modes. And the main thing I learned from her was to play, because to work with kids, you have to play. and
Yes.
like I said, when I came to London, and I was casting for a short film that I needed to direct as a graduation film, uh, I had the privilege of getting a lot of actors, like a whole pile of actors would send you, in those days, post you, like a brown
Yeah.
envelope with a black and white mugshot and your CV and all of that. And you would shortlist, and I would audition and cast actors who are, trained actors, coming from Malaysia, where, as you know, most actors are not trained in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So coming to London and working on a short film, and casting actors that were amazing, uh, I had to devise a way of working with actors. And in a very Malaysian way, I own self create. I found a process of just chatting to actors one step at a time and then improvising with them. And so the the process of improvising and playing with the actors was from 20 years ago, the new millennium, 99 2000, when I did my master's at Goldsmiths. And I think one day it was sort of like a RADA trained actor sort of said to me, Bernard, your process seems to be very different. Where have you found this process? It's like from observing and then making it up and playing. So as you say, so unless an actor has sort of like gone through a conversation and an audition with me, uh, it's a process that I've just made up along the way.
Yeah.
But inspired by the theater process, not really the film process, interestingly. So the theater process of working with actors, collaborating, but also I think the idea of theater as being contemporary performance and contemporary as contemporary rather than sort of very traditional, and again observing theaters in observing practitioners in Southeast Asia, Janet Pillay, Christian Jade, Ong King Sen in Malaysia, in Singapore, and Zahim Abakri in Malaysia. So it was from there that I came up with that process.
Ah, I see. I love the discovery process and also adapting a style
Yeah.
that you've now, used in most of your films, as I
Yes.
understand it to be.
Mm.
So just wanted to kind of just like reel it back to that process
Yeah.
of casting.
Yeah.
Because I realize now, with the whole situation of us being a lockdown and everything, it's relevant in the sense of directors out there as well as very new directors maybe looking for fresh talent out there.
Yeah.
You cast online. Is that right?
Yes, so I think in framing this talk, which is the director's process. So after making a series of successful rom-coms with a difference in Malaysia, I decided to push the boundary a bit and do more devised, improvised work because British directors like Mike Lee and Michael Winterbottom have inspired me for many, many years. And when the time came where I could create stories that was more improvised, the first of it, Eropa, Here I Am, which you mentioned, which was taking three actors to Greece, essentially. And it was a commissioned piece by a broadcaster in Malaysia with a limited budget. I actually love working with limitations. In a way, censorship inspires you to circumvent and subvert. Limited budgets and resources actually make you be very creative and think. So in that instance, I knew I had a limited budget, but I said, I'm not going to do something typical. I'll take three actors to Greece. It was at the time of the migrant crisis between Turkey. Well, a lot of Syrian migrants were going across from Turkey to Greece,
Yeah.
and I said, okay, I will take three actors, and also because the lead up time to broadcast was very short. So essentially, the broadcaster wanted it in a very short time. And I said, okay, rather than take time fleshing out a full script, trust me to improvise a story with actors. And 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 I sort of approached one actor, Bron Palare.
Mm.
Thinking about today, I've actually also sort of like thought that my process actually is quite locked down or challenging. It works for challenging situations in the sense that I usually am sparked by something external. Like I said, in the event of Europa, here I am. It's seeing the migrant crisis, and I think a lot of people remember that child on the beach, that dead child on the beach that just triggered the whole conversation at that time. So that was one. The second thing is access to a space. And as it happened, I had the privilege of living in Athens for half a year, and knowing that there was a woman on this island in Greece, that was that had a reception center for migrants, for refugees. So the first was a trigger point, the second was access to a location, and the third is identifying an actor. And so I approach one actor first, Bront. I text him, are you game? Will you come on this journey to Greece with me? It will only be 7 days. I know you're a busy actor. It's a very low budget film, but will you trust me? I will then cast two other actors and we'll make a film in 7 days. And you'll be a Malaysian volunteering on a Greek island as a film character. And so once I got him, I then looked for the other actors. And I needed a Greek actress
Yeah.
and a Turkish actor. So it was the first sort of like quite a transcultural, transnational film. And Thinking about it again, as a director, you're never just a director. You're always also a networker, a producer,
Yeah.
a salesman, etc. And how did I eventually cast the two actors? It wasn't going through an agent. It was 20 years of knowing people through film festivals, working with people internationally, and I just emailed friends, okay, I'm looking for a Turkish actor, preferably who can play Syrian. I'm looking for a Greek actress, you know. So sort of like I was in KL working with a very limited budget with no casting director, just sending emails out to contacts, to key contacts. And as you said, I then had Skype conversations with, in the case of Europa Here I Am, a Skype conversation with Aziz Çapkut, a Turkish actor of Kurdish ancestry based in Istanbul. So I had a Skype conversation with him, like you, like I'm having with you now. And it actually goes back to something I learned at Goldsmiths 20 years ago. Someone said that you will know within 3 to 5 minutes of talking to a person whether you want to work with that person. And I think that is really the key to casting. You know, sort of like, especially when you're working with, or when you're meeting somebody you don't know, you don't jump straight into talking about a scene, read the scene and everything. You have a conversation, you read the body language, you have eye contact with the actor. And so, preferably, this is done in person, but with Aziz Çapkut, the actor that I eventually cast, within 20 minutes, we got along like a house on fire. We didn't talk about the role. We didn't talk about the film. We didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about. We just sort of like took time to get to know each other. Going back to the process of casting being, can you and do you want to work with this person? Is there something about this person that interests you? So I think that is that's something that can take place over the internet, wherever you are.
Yeah, yeah, great tips there. I hope everyone's listening, making notes.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Eye contact, just be yourself.
Be yourself. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's wonderful for for those of us watching today, as well as because this will be available on YouTube as well later on for audiences to watch back. It is very difficult, I think, as actors for us to kind of think of ticking off all those boxes, isn't it? We're gonna impress the person, we're gonna know our lines, we're gonna have obviously do all those things. But do you find that what puts you off? I'm just curious to know.
Okay, I'm glad you asked that. Actors who come in with tinted contact lenses. Because
specific.
Yes, quite specific. Because I think especially Malaysia, as you know, in Malaysia, for some reason there are a lot of young female actors in particular who want to be somebody other than themselves, and they've got dark colored eyes, but they can't, for some reason they want to go for press events, or they want to appear on screen, or they want to come for auditions wearing tinted lenses. And I have told a few actresses, okay, before we continue, can you go off, remove your tinted lenses? I need to look into your eyes.
Yeah.
So I think it really is as basic and as specific as that, you know. Don't overdress, be yourself, and show your eyes, and don't have a fake accent. Don't sort of put on a voice that's not you. I don't know. So, of course, everything is performance. You know, if you want to get philosophical, everything is chosen. So even who you choose to be, you know, who you are, but as close to sort of like having as few masks as possible.
Yeah, if we can. I mean, obviously, technically, as actors, we're in a way trained to do that. We're trained to take off the masks. Hopefully, the audition process is such an artificial process. You know, it is. And so I'm curious because I know some directors have different styles. With your particular style, and also to link into an earlier question someone had, which was how long do you take to work on manuscripts, and you devise with the actor. Why do you do that? And what benefits have you found to be able to do that with the actor?
Okay, so let's focus on a specific project, because in our conversation arriving at the frame for this talk, we said that we would potentially look at two projects, in particular Europa Here I Am, the project that I've mentioned a bit, which is in Greece, and another one starring Lisa Srihani, which is a one-woman, one-location film. So Lisa Srihani is a sweetheart, Malaysia's darling, a very established actress, somebody I've been working with for 14 years, someone I've been working with since she was 14 years old. She's now in her 30s. And how long did it take to write that manuscript? It's a roundabout question, because I first conceived of the notion, the idea for the story, which is a woman has packed her entire home to join her husband who's based abroad. Just as she's about to leave the house, she gets a text from him saying, basically he's divorcing her according to Islamic rules via a text message.
Yeah.
And the whole film is her dealing or not dealing with that reality. So I actually thought of of the idea for that film, the premise of that film, quite soon after I came back from Goldsmiths. So it's quite so it was quite a long time ago. It was in the early noughties. And again, I come back to sort of like the three inspiration points. I was triggered by an article that I read in the newspaper, which was a question: is an Islamic divorce via text message legal? So that was the question. That was the question that led to the premise. And at that point, I was living in a tropical house in Malaysia, which had wide sliding doors. And one day, while thinking of a story, it was raining, and I somehow thought, what if this house was empty, and what if I pushed a car into the living room? And for anyone who's keen to watch the film, you'll realize why that's important. So it was sort of like, again, a trigger, which was a question, a space that was inspiring, and then the third was an actor. So I need a vehicle apart from a car. So I actually wrote the premise and the idea for that film in the early noughties. But it was quite a tricky and trying film to make. It's not an easy film to pitch. So I actually needed to make Istanbul Aku Datang, which was a very successful romantic comedy with Lisa Srihani, before the broadcaster would sort of trust me and say, okay, Bernard, it's a crazy idea, but it's because it's you, it's Lisa, it's one location, and there's a king cobra. You go off, it's again a tight budget, you go off and tell this story. So so the long answer and the short answer was actually, it was a film that was about 17 to 18 years in the making, from the time I had the idea, going through the whole.
I think we've some technical stuff. We're startly going to hopefully Bernard be able to come back. You're frozen a little bit, Bernard. Hang on.
Yeah, frozen. Yes, am I back?
Just the last
Yes.
couple of things you said. Yeah.
So yes. In the case of Container Ana with Lisa Srihani, it was a film that I conceived of close to 20 years ago, but I had to go through the whole process of making successful, critically acclaimed, commercially successful box office hits before I could actually convince producers to say, okay, go off and devise a film with an actor.
Yeah, yeah. That's I think that's quite important for people to understand that you've put in all that work to build up your CV, to build up your contacts, to be able to also, because Lisa is also she's a darling of Malaysian cinema,
Yeah.
and for her to be the vehicle for this was both artistic choice, I'm sure, as well as a commercial choice on your
Yeah.
part as well.
Yes, I mean, like in the case of Quintina Anna, the broadcaster would not have given me the money if she wasn't a very famous actress. It was like, in the context of Britain, say it's like taking someone like Keira Knightley, or someone
Yeah.
even younger, and sort of saying, I'm going to do something completely out of the box with her. But coming back to
The manuscript scripting.
yes, the manuscript. So, in relation to the topic of this conversation, which is devising a story with actors for film, I'm a director. I'm a reluctant writer. So, but at the same time, when I say I'm a reluctant writer, I'm a reluctant writer when it comes to writing dialogue. There are people who are really innately talented at writing dialogue. It's not my innate talent, and I can sort of like improve over the years and confront it, and keep working at it. But life's too short, and you can sort of sometimes spend your time on other strategies that excite you. And in the case of the manuscript, I think I forwarded the the shooting document for both films that we are talking about, Europa Here I Am and Container Anna. And usually in the industry, the standard is one page equals 1 minute. But as you know, sort of like I sent you two documents, and they were both less than 30 pages each, which means that the whole script was there, which took me weeks to write. But I said, having thought about the ideas for months or years, so I had very clear, I had a very clear idea of what the story is. You cannot lie, producer. You cannot lie to producers. You cannot lie to the actor. I don't know what the story is. I mean, you do have to know what the story is and why you're making it. And in that in that respect, the manuscript or the shooting document, I would break it down into two categories. One is, you know, the whole arc of the story, and you have to know the whole arc of the story. And then you break it down into every different scene. The actor and you has to know what the beginning, the middle, and the end of the scene is. And hopefully, where the character is in the beginning of the scene is not the same as where she or he is at the end of it. So there's a sort of like progression. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean by that is, like, if you're the same person in the beginning of the scene and the end of the scene, what's the point of the story?
Yeah.
Where's your character growth? So in that sense, like breaking down the whole story as a big story, and then sort of within each scene, I was very clear what the scene is about. There is a beginning, middle, and by the end of the scene, this will happen to the character. Only then can you go into the process of working with the actor in a devised and improvised situation. You're not making up the story as you're going along. Yes, of course, it is enriched, but that's where you invite the actor to come in.
Yeah, and could you then so and that's a lovely contextualizing of what we're talking about today. There was a question as well about working with the actors in the room. Uh,
Yes.
what is the level of contact you have with them? Do you just do you find those moments with the script, or do you let them improvise? Is there a changing? Do you change it based on who the actor is? Especially if they're great at something. Do you just let them run away with it? Do you do it on camera, or do you do it in the rehearsal room first?
Okay, so every director's process is different. But for me, whether I'm making a commercial rom-com or an edgy film, I insist on having a rehearsal process. And especially in Malaysia, not many directors, not many film directors go through that process. Uh, and the reason I have a rehearsal process and insist on a rehearsal process is, uh, in the context that we're working with in Asia, as you said, some actors are trained, some actors are not trained, and you actually want to, through the rehearsal process, arrive at a place where you're all going to perform ably when we start rolling the camera. And 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 there's no trade secret, but for me it's very simple. My rehearsal process covers three areas. The first is to work with the actor to find his or her character. So it's characterization. So characterization work can be done one to one. Like I could do this with you on the internet. Not ideal, but I can do character excavation work with you one to one.
Yeah.
So once I've cast you and I like you and I want to work with you, so we work together one to one. And then let's say you are the main character. Then the second stage is to develop a rapport and a dynamic with the other characters, with the other actors. So that's the second thing. But we're not dealing with the script. We are actually dealing with finding the character, who you are, and how you relate to the other person. Only then do I sort of touch on the tone and the actual story and the actual script. The difference between the difference between the film process and the theater process is, for theater, you're going to go on stage night after night, doing the same performance. On screen, you're doing all the work. It's like an Olympic champion. You're doing all the work so that you just hit that Olympic gold medal moment. You just want that one moment on camera. So a lot of times with actors, I actually explore the negative space of the script. What I mean by that, we don't actually look at the scene itself. We don't over dissect the lines in the screenplay. We are looking at what about the space in between this scene and this scene, like between scene 67 and scene 68. What happened? Let's explore this space, the space in between, and the negative space, because then you do all the training and rehearsing so that when you're actually shooting the actual scene, you have not over rehearsed it in the rehearsal space for the camera. And so same thing with the devised work that I've done with actors, whether it's with Bron Palare in Europa, Here I Am, or Lisa Srihani in Container Ana. I rehearsed with them, but we did a lot of games, playing. I love playing with actors.
Yeah.
So they really are theater exercises. We don't talk about, we don't read scripts, we don't overanalyze any dialogue, so that when we actually shoot it, it's like priming the actor to that moment and letting the magic happen.
Yeah, which is very different from theater, I find, where we do sort of like look at the individual lines to the T sometimes.
Which, of course, is necessary in
Yes.
most processes. Yeah,
It's a different level of trust, I guess, because like the way you
very much
cast,
so.
I think would you say correctly that you cast actors who would in a way thrive in that process with you?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So sort of like from and like I said, it goes back to the very first moment you meet the actor, because I don't have all the answers, and I'm a director who's a reluctant writer, and I'm not an actor. So I know that I can't tell you how to play a role or step into a character. I need you to bring just as much. Actually, it's better if you bring more than I can actually trigger and give you.
Yeah.
Because and perhaps that's why, sort of like in my track record, actors and actresses win awards, and I've won some directing awards, but actresses and actors have won more acting awards than I have won directing and acting directing and writing awards. Because I think, it's probably because I've just, introduced a process where if you're going to give more than I can give you, then good for you. And sometimes that's why I choose to work with the actors that I do, because I know that I will take them on a process where they will surprise themselves and surprise me, that they will arrive somewhere beyond where they thought they would be or would be capable of. And I think that's the beauty of devising a work with an actor, and that's why I find it magical and quite exciting. And of course, I like both. Very scripted and set in stone, as well as quite improvisational. But I think the reason we're talking about this in this day and age is you're finding ways where you can work with limitations in every respect, and I find working with a small crew with few actors in a device and improvisational in an improvisational setting can be very inspiring and fulfilling.
And I mean, if would you say that if anyone wants to say watch the shows that you mentioned, there would be a possibility, perhaps maybe if they could contact Car Crash Productions, we might be
of course.
Give them a link to watch the films.
Yeah, definitely. I sent you the links, and yes, of course, definitely. Yeah.
That would be lovely, especially to kind of looking back from our conversation today to pull out some of those moments. And so addressing the elephant in the room, we are in lockdown times. What is your take on filmmaking in this era, so to speak?
Gosh, I'm not the oracle, but starting with my own work and my own possibilities. At the very beginning, I thought that it was going to be the end of the way, the end of the world. The end of what I know, and and I was going to think, oh wow, okay, 20 years I've had enough work, and I'm going to switch careers. But actually, strangely, I've been surprised that actually during lockdown, there's a natural selection where projects that are meant to survive and should go forward are still going forward. Whether it's a film, it's something that's part of a series for HBO, or something that is a non-fiction series for a European public broadcaster. It's a natural selection. Of course, at the same time, not just the monsters like Netflix, but empty spaces like theaters will need stories and audiences to fill it. With the moving image and visual content. Of course, the current dilemma is, yes, Netflix is pausing. Netflix and HBOs and all the big people are pausing production. But I think that's a different dilemma. It's a time that I think it's an opportunity to really pause and ask yourself, what are the stories that I really, really want to tell, and which are the projects that I really, really, really want to work on? And everyone will know, will find those answers for themselves, as directors, as actors, and I'm always on the side of a realistic optimist. I'm not a pessimist, nor am I an outright rah-rah optimist. I think reflection and challenge, and like I said, limitations and being pushed into a corner will make you think what you really want to do more than anything else. So whether you're a director, whether you're an actor, whether you're a producer, whether you're a writer, I think those projects that are actually that I think are already in you.
Yeah.
Those projects that are already in you will bubble to the surface, or if you have a desire